Assalamu alaikum and good evening to all the esteemed participants tonight. Many greetings of peace and love to everyone. A famous Russian novelist said, "The mystery of human existence lies not in just staying alive, but in finding something to live for." As we grow in our lives, one of the things we do is to find the purpose of one's life. It is this purpose that differentiates human beings from other species. Realizing the purpose would give direction and meaning to our lives, which ultimately gives us a sense of contentment. With purpose in front of us, we are able to utilize the treasures like thoughts, time, and energy in a worthwhile way. But how do I realize my purpose? Is there any purpose to set my purpose? Today's talk, Living and Leading with Purpose, reflects on these points. Today's talk is jointly organized by Raj Yoga Center Dubai, the Meditation Space DMCC Dubai, Raj Yoga Center for Self-Development Muscat, and Doha Meditation Space Doha. I'm very delighted to introduce the keynote speaker of today's event. I wholeheartedly welcome Mike George, who is the keynote addressing today, joining us from UK. And Mike George is the author, management tutor, coach, mentor, trainer, and the retreat leader. Mike has authored 16 books focused on self-understanding and personal enlightenment. He brings together the three key strands of the 21st century: self-awareness, emotional intelligence, and continuous unlearning. He has authored books like Being Yourself, Don't Get Mad, Get Wise, Liberating Leadership, The 7 Myths About Love, etc. To me, Mike facilitates deep and right thinking within the self, allowing one to come up with their own ingredients. This has enabled many to bring about the much needed shift in their lives. He is that right person to speak on today's topic. I request all the participants to wave a hand of welcome to Mike George. Over to you, Mike.
Thanks, Jyotika, and a very warm welcome to everyone. Thank you very much for tuning in. It's lovely to be with you. I have the honor of being your guide and navigator for the next hour or so. And I think you know the subject of our time together is this idea of purpose. And a question that crosses the lips of many during their lifetime, if not their conversations, is what's it all about? What is life all about? What is the purpose? What am I doing here? What is the purpose? What's the reason for living, basically? So, I mean, there's two questions essentially that it kind of comes down to, I think. What's the purpose of life, and what's my purpose in life? You know, what's the purpose of life, and what's my purpose in life? And I think the answer, for me anyway, it might not be for you. And if you have any questions, if there's anything really bothering you, feel free to, at any stage, just put that in the chat box, and I'll try and meet it or deal with it or respond to it at some stage during the presentation, during the talk. But for me, the answer to this question of what is the purpose of life is really simple. And it's so close. It's very close to our noses, they say. It's like going into a gallery and putting your nose right up into the painting and there is the painting. And it's the purpose of life for me is to live, is to live. And if you look at nature, if you look at bushes and trees and flowers, that's all they do is they just live. They don't think about it. However, we think about things a lot, and I'm sure many of you are thinking already, wait a minute, it's a bit too simple. Um, we think a lot, and therefore we can ask the question, um, what does it mean to live? What is the quality of my living? And if you notice, when you're asking that question, you are thinking about purpose. In other words, you're creating thoughts about purpose. In other words, you are thinking, therefore you are creating. And so, again, for me, the purpose of life is to live, yes, but then what is the quality of my life? What is the quality I can make my life? That depends on the thoughts that I create. Because everything begins with a thought. And so for me, the purpose of life, if you want to keep it simple, is to be creative, is to think creatively, because everything begins in our lives, our personal lives, with a thought. So what I'd like to do actually is take you through a little bit of a presentation, a little bit of a story, and share some thoughts with you around this particular subject, and then you can see what works for you and what doesn't work for you, and what you'd like to give me a hard time about at the end of that. So let me share my screen with you, and we can make a little journey together. And there's our topic for today. And what I'd like to kind of begin with is really the four principles that run through everything that I'm kind of sharing with you. And I'm going to return to these principles um, as we go through this particular topic. Principle number one is consciousness is what you are. That sounds really easy. It sounds pretty logical. But of course, what we learn to do is we learn to be something other than consciousness, whether it's your name or your nationality or what you see in the mirror in the bathroom in the morning. That tends to be what you think you are or who you are. But really, what I'm saying is kind of reminding you, I guess, is that consciousness is what you are. I'm sure that's not a new idea to many of you, but just in case this is the first time you've encountered a presentation like this, then that's always what I'm going to be talking to and about, as you will notice. Principle number two is called self-responsibility. And this is what each one of us has to realize, that we are totally responsible for ourselves. Again, it sounds easy, but not so easy in practical reality, because we believe someone else is responsible for how we think and what we feel and what we do and our circumstances, etc. And so it's really down to me. I am the one who's responsible for everything that I create. And I'm going to get into that, as you can imagine. Principle number three is to do with curiosity. In other words, to really understand what I'm sharing with you, it's necessary to arouse our own curiosity, probably re-arouse it, because for most of us, it's been suppressed or repressed. Just the conditioning of society tends to tell us that we're not so much curious human beings as consumptive human beings. We consume lots of information and images from our screens, and we forget how to be curious in ourselves. And so to really understand, to really get under the skin of this particular topic, it's necessary to be curious. And the fourth principle is this thing called emotion. And at times you're going to feel emotional. In fact, in life, at times we feel emotional. And emotion is like a flaring of our consciousness. I don't know if you've seen these pictures of the sun, and the energy of the sun flares out. A little bit goes off into the universe, but most of it, after the flaring is finished, comes back into the energy of the sun. In other words, it merges once again. And consciousness is a little bit like that. Whenever you're emotional in any way, it means you're just flaring your energy, the energy of your consciousness. And it's going to settle back in a few moments. So it's okay. In other words, it's not good or bad or right or wrong, or you shouldn't be emotional or you should. It just does happen. But it's understanding how it happens that is going to help us get really clear about why we need to stop it happening if we are going to access the full potential of our creativity. So these are the four principles that are kind of running through the red threads, if you like, of this particular presentation. So everything is a purpose. Everything in life comes to us, whether it's money, objects, people, situations. They come for us to use. A hammer comes because it has a use. Pretty obvious that it's for hammering in nails, although we can use it for other things. A lawnmower is used for cutting grass, pretty obvious. And institutions, they are also used to serve the public. At least that's the theory. And so that leaves us with one question is what's the purpose of you? What is your purpose? What is your purpose in life? And it brings us back to this question, well, what is the purpose of life itself? Yeah, and so what is the purpose of life? What is it exactly? Could it be that simple? Could it be just as simple as to live? Yeah, and in many ways, from innocence, that might be the answer. If you didn't think about it, it might be the answer. I just need to live a natural life. But of course, it leads us to the question, how am I living? Or how should I live? How will I live? And that leads into something called the quality of our life. What's the quality of the life you're living? We're able to discern quality, unlike the birds and the bees, the bushes and the trees. They don't have this discerning capacity to get a sense of the quality of their circumstances or even the quality of their sound or growth. So there are two levels of quality in our life, the material conditions that we find around us and the conditions of our consciousness. And we're actually responsible for both. This brings us to this principle of self-responsibility. The material conditions you find yourself in at this moment, yeah, you have created those. The conditions of your consciousness, your state of consciousness at this moment is your creation. Yeah, it's no one else that is responsible. So we operate at two levels, doing and being, or it should really be being and doing, because being comes before doing, in a sense. Or you could even say that the primary act of being is the first doing, because it is a kind of action internally in our consciousness. So being and doing, they come hand in hand, they come together. And they come together at the level of our mind. Yeah, we all have a mind, and it's in the mind that we create our thoughts. Everyone does that. Every human being creates thoughts, and everything in our life begins with the inner action, the mental action of creating a thought. Now, you might think other people create your thoughts. You watch television, you watch the news, and you think they're creating your thoughts, but they're not really. That's why you can space out when you're watching the news or watching a screen or listening to someone, because you've decided to create ideas and images and thoughts about something else, even although they're pouring information at you. So when you decide to attend to that information, you recreate that information as your own thoughts, or else you might space out, drift off, go somewhere else, and create thoughts, ideas, images of something else, even while they're creating and pouring their information at you. So it's always me who's responsible for my own creation. So inside, there's something called a state of being. And according to your state of being, so will your thoughts be, and so will your action be. And so your consciousness is sometimes we refer to as what is in here. Yeah, it's internal. And then the world around us is out there. And so for the purposes of this presentation, let's separate the two, in here and out there. And the interface between the two is the mind. So the world out there comes through the mind into consciousness in here. And whatever I'm thinking, whatever my state of being is, radiates out into the world outside. It's pretty straightforward. And the mind is the interface. The mind is like a screen and a lens. You can put any idea on the screen of your mind, and you can allow whatever is going on in the world around you out there through the lens of your mind into your consciousness. So it's kind of both ways. So it's the interface between you and the world. So the mind is rather important. The mind is like a screen. Yeah, you can create anything, any image, idea, thought, concept. You know this from your own experience. You're doing it all the time. So, are you shaping the world with your thoughts? Are you shaping the circumstances, the conditions around you, outside of you, with your thinking? Or are you allowing the world to shape your thinking as the world comes in and meets your mind and you watch the world on the screen of your mind? Are you allowing it to impress upon you and therefore be the creator of your state of being? There's a question. The creative individual is the master of their state of being, and they don't allow the world to shape their thinking. That's why we learn to believe when we believe the world is shaping our thoughts. We learn to believe we're not responsible for our conscious state of being. We learn to believe that someone else, something else, some set of circumstances out there is responsible for our state of being. But that's the wrong way around. Yeah, when you understand yourself as a creator, then your state of being should, well, I don't like using that word should, but could be shaping the world. So the quality of your life depends on your thinking, depends on what you're creating on your mind within your consciousness. The one thing you're doing at every moment is thinking. You cannot not think. You cannot not create thoughts. It's what you are here to do. It is your purpose in life to create thoughts. Yeah. So everything within your consciousness, A, and B, out there in your personal world starts with a thought. Yeah. And you created that thought. To think is to create. Thinking is creating. Yeah. You cannot not do that. Your state of being shapes and defines your thoughts. So what is your state of being? Is it dark and bleak and depressing, or is it bright, enthusiastic, and lively? What is your state of being most of the time? It's your job to create your state of being, not the world's job. That's the bit that we find so hard, because we learn to believe it's the world that creates my state of being. That's why we go to the movie and get addicted to the movie. That's why we like to be with a certain person and then become addicted to that relationship. That's why we like certain foods and then we like more of that food, because we're allowing those things to shape, to define our state of being. So when you realize you're a creator and that everything begins with your thoughts, and if you add a pinch of time and a smidgen of space, then you realize you create the story of your life. You are the creator of your journey through life. Yeah. So your life is your story. Yeah. Your life is your story. It's as simple as that. Are you creating your story well? The problem is we create the story and then we hold on to the story. You ask good authors, good storytellers, they'll tell you they create a story, but they immediately let go of it in order to create new scenes, new characters, and new stories. Yeah, and so and so your history is not you; it's just your creation, and you are the creator, and that's challenging in itself. Your history, your story of yesterday is your creation, and you are the creator. The creator is not the creation. So, in order to create well into the future, I need to let go of the story that I've created in the past. Sounds easy, sounds theoretically simple. But for most of us, it's quite challenging because we want to hold on. In fact, we build our sense of identity around our history, the story we've created so far. So, as a leader, and let's talk about leadership for a moment, you create your own story, that's true, but you're also tasked in helping others create their story. Whether you're a leader of a team, an organization, or you're just a parent in a family, and therefore you are leading your children into the world, you create your own story. That's always happening, but you're also tasked, you're also challenged, you've also invited yourself to help others create their story. That's why you're a leader of a team, or you're a leader of your family, or you're a leader just in a relationship. So the purpose of life then is to create and co-create. Yeah. So you're not just creating your story, but you're helping others create their story. Therefore, you're in a co-creative relationship. That's why creativity is one of our deepest motivators. Yeah. Whenever you're creating something, if you notice, if you're aware, self-aware, you lose the awareness of time passing. Whenever you're lost in creating anything, you lose the awareness of time. You don't look at a clock, you don't look at a watch because you're totally absorbed, giving yourself wholeheartedly to what you are creating or who you are creating with, basically. So there's a joy in that process that arises from inside. And it takes just a little bit of self-recognition to recognize that joy is coming from within. It's not coming from what's going on outside of you. It's coming from within when you give yourself wholeheartedly to the creation of anything on your own or with others. The satisfaction comes not in the achievement of whatever you're creating, but during the complete process. That's why ultimately you wouldn't stop to say, oh, look what I've achieved. Wasn't I so clever? Your creative process would continue on as it does in the reality of your consciousness. But you want to stop it and hold on to the achievement, and you want applause. We tend to want applause for the achievement. Oh, I'm so good. Aren't I great? And that's the moment I stop being creative. I'm allowing the applause of others to shape my state of being. In other words, I'm becoming dependent on others for recognition for my achievement, my creation, and therefore I have stopped creating. And so I'm allowing the world to shape me. That's a mistake, and that's a mistake most of us have learned to make. As we learn to believe, keyword belief, that you have to achieve, you reach your goals, achieve what you set out to do in life, instead of seeing life as a continuous, creative process. So there's a paradox. There's a paradox when it comes to understanding our creativity. And I don't mean painting, poetry, or those limited ideas of creativity that we learn at school or university. I mean creating a relationship, creating the right attitude, creating the right thoughts, creating the appropriate actions in the context of that relationship. And so the paradox happens is that a sense of fulfillment arises only because I empty myself. It's like a paradox. It's like a brilliant aspect of the design of human consciousness, is that you can only really feel fulfilled and satisfied within yourself. Some people call that happiness, when you have emptied yourself. In other words, given yourself over wholeheartedly to the process of creativity, whatever you're creating, whether it's a process, an object, whether it's a behavior, whether it's a thought, a concept, it doesn't really matter. Whatever you're giving yourself wholeheartedly to, you're emptying yourself into that creation. So that's why creativity is one of the deepest motivators in life. It's a motivation. Motivation really means to move. What motivates you? What gets you out of bed in the morning? What moves you? Movement, motivation to move, all have this idea of moving. There's a little formula, and it goes like this: I plus D equals C. I stands for involvement, D equals development, and C is commitment. Whatever you involve yourself in or other people in, whether it's your team that you're leading, if you involve them in the development of anything, process, product, um, communication strategy, it doesn't really matter what you involve them in. The development of anything means you're asking for them, for their creative contribution. And when they have made a contribution, that's when they feel a greater sense of commitment to what has been developed. Yeah, and so it's the same for us as individuals as it might be for the leading of other people, organizations, teams, etc. So to turbocharge that commitment, to make it even stronger, then involve them in the development of something that is meaningful to them. In other words, help people to see the meaning of what they are making a creative contribution to. And we all know this, is that we're more committed when we're creating something meaningful. You can tell when a child sees the toy shop, which has tremendous meaningful, it means they're going to have a lot of fun, and suddenly they feel very committed to reaching, getting into the toy shop and playing. In other words, their energy level, their enthusiasm level goes through the roof. The same with the football fan. You take the football fan at a weekend and they have a completely different energy than they do when they go to work during the week. Why? Because they feel personally involved with the team. They feel as if they're witnessing the development, and therefore, by their shouting, they're contributing to the development of their team's performance. And so they're incredibly motivated. Yeah, because it's meaningful to them. It's much more meaningful to go and watch their team than it is to watch another sport, another team, etc. So the purpose of life then, for me, it's not for you, and you can challenge me if you want later on, the purpose of life is creativity that is meaningful. That's why I'm here. I'm here to be creative and to create what is meaningful to me. And that's why it becomes personal. That's when it becomes personal. What's meaningful to me might not be meaningful to you. And so you get the moment to choose what is most meaningful to you. Only you know what is more meaningful to you. And of course, what's meaningful for you today may change. In 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, it might be something completely different. And so therefore you will contribute your creativity to a different area of meaningfulness in your life. And that changes. And if it doesn't change, then you're probably a little bit stuck as they say, a little bit trapped. So are you aware of how you are creating your life? When I watch people, you can kind of tell what they've made their, if you like, their purpose in life. You know, some people make survival. They believe survival is the purpose of life. I've just got to survive. We have to survive as a species. We have to keep going. Some people, they believe they're here to contribute to the service of others. For them, this is more meaningful, much more meaningful. And so when I watch people, and they're not aware of it, but I'm kind of aware of where they are positioning themselves, probably subconsciously, probably not consciously. When you make survival your purpose in life, then you're always taking, you can see where you fall under these two particular headings. When you make service your purpose in life, you tend to be a giver. You're always giving. When you make survival your purpose in life, then you live with a lot of fear, maybe not fear, but anxiety, worry, tension. They tend to be the habits, the emotional habits that you develop. Not right, not wrong, not good, not bad, but you're living in those emotional states which are not as healthy as they could be in your consciousness. Whereas when you live to serve others, then you are making a loving contribution, and love and creativity, they kind of go hand in hand. You can't be really deeply creative unless your state of being is coming from a place of love, of giving. When you make survival your purpose in life, then competition tends to be your behavior. When you make service your purpose in life, then cooperation. You tend to cooperate, hold out the hand of cooperation. How can I help you? When you make survival your purpose in life, you're holding on, you're very attached to what you've got, what you've acquired so far. You don't want to let it go, you're scared of losing. When you make service your purpose in life, then you're not attached to anything because you realize that anything you can get attached to comes and goes. You cannot hold on to anything. It comes and goes, and it comes for use and it goes at the moment it's meant to leave. When you make survival your purpose in life, a lot of resistance because you see people as a threat. You see people and their behavior and their intentions as threatening to you. So you put up a barrier and you kind of resist them. When you make service your purpose in life, you're open, you're free, you accept people as they are, whatever, whoever comes, whatever attitude they come with is fine. You just accept it. And then you use it to work for you and to make it work for them. When your survival is purpose in life, then you're very impatient to get what you want before someone else gets it. When you make service your purpose in life, you're much more patient because you know everything and everyone shows up at the right moment, at the appropriate time. And you cannot force anything outside of you to do anything. As soon as you try to force, then you're going to fail, essentially. You've kind of realized that. That's why you're quite patient. When you make survival your purpose in life, it's all about me, me, me. I've got to look after me. When you make service your purpose in life, it's, well, a combination of me and others. Yes, you are available for others, but you need to take care of your own energy. You need to recharge your own battery. So it's this balance between the two. And so one is destructive. Yeah, when you live and you're living from survival, and most people, many people, live from the belief that they're here, the purpose of life is just to survive, then they tend to live in fear. And fear is a destructive emotion, it's a draining emotion. It destroys your vitality and it kills your enthusiasm. When you live from a place of service, I'm here for others, I'm here to give, I'm here to share, then you are naturally much more creative. You're drawing on your creative energies. In other words, how can I help you? In what ways can I reach out and care for you? You need to be creative. You will be thinking creatively. How can I be of service to others? So it's a difference between the two. I'm just showing these as a kind of contrast. So one is a lot of stress, a lot of struggle, and that's why many people, it's just a stressful life and it's a struggle to survive. Whereas the other, you manage to remain calm and you're caring as you're helping others through the journey of life itself. So no one teaches us how to develop our creative process. No one teaches us. This is how the energy of life, which is you, your energy, your consciousness, you are a being of consciousness, is used to create your story. This is how you use it. And again, this is just not part of our education. You are thinking all the time. No one teaches you how to think or what to think. That triggers feelings, might trigger emotions. Let's put that to one side. That's another seminar, basically. And then that gives rise to an attitude, whether it's towards the government or the other person or what you're doing. And that leads to action, leads to behavior. And if you do the same action over and over again, week in, week out, day in, day out, you create a habit, your comfort zone, basically, and put all your habits together and you get your unique personality. It's called the matrix of habits, is your persona, your personality. Take your personality out into your journey through life, into the context of all your relationships, and you create your destiny. Yeah, and so this is the creative process. One word missing, and it's called decisions. Who creates those decisions? You do. You might allow yourself to be influenced. You might even believe that someone else is deciding for you, but they're not. You're creating the decision in your consciousness. So prior to your thoughts is your perception. How do you see? Is the glass half full or half empty? What's your interpretation of the world? Is it dark and dangerous, or is it just a place of light and happiness? You have to decide. You create your perception, and you will create your perception according to your beliefs. Yeah, and your beliefs are what you've absorbed and assimilated on the journey so far. So that's what makes us all different. We all have different beliefs and different perceptions. That's why we think differently, make different decisions, go in different directions, etc. The creative process is unique to every single human being. Again, a brilliant piece of design in, in consciousness, in human consciousness. So here's that creative process. And you can decide whether you're going to allow your beliefs to shape your perception and your thoughts or your values. You can reawaken your values. Now, some people, they get the two mixed up. They think they're just the same. Beliefs and values are just the same, but they're not. Beliefs are what you think is true, but you don't know is true. That's why belief always accompanies doubt. There's always a doubt, because if you knew, then you wouldn't need to believe. So it's what you think is true, but you're not totally sure is true. And that's why it's called belief. The being is kind of lying to itself. Be, lie, self. Yeah, the being is lying to itself. That's the truth about beliefs. In other words, you're holding on to an idea and you're attached to the idea. It's not that the belief is wrong, it's the attachment to the idea, to the concept, to the belief. Yeah, that's the mistake. In other words, the being is lying to itself. Whereas when you reawaken your values are what you care about deep down. And most people really don't know what they care about. They know what they're attached to, but that's quite different from what they care about. So let's look at the control belief. This is the belief that other people should do what I want, the world should dance to my tune. And the reason we become upset is when other people don't do what we want. Yeah. And so we try to control them. And so you can't control any other human being. It's not possible. We kind of know that intellectually, but still we try to control what we can't control. Reason? Because we've learned to believe that when they do what I want, that will make me happy. I cannot be happy until you do what I want, give me what I want, be what I want. And so the control belief is coming from the happiness belief. Now, how do you know these are beliefs and not the truth? Because you know deep down inside there's only one person who's responsible for your happiness, and that's you. Yeah, and that's the self. That's called self responsibility. In other words, if I make my happiness dependent on others all the time, that's called dependency. Yeah, and that's what we do. We learn to be dependent on people, situations, events, substances, and then we become happy only when they do give us what we want. So when people don't do what you want, you're unhappy, you get angry, you get upset. And so this is where emotional suffering has its roots because of these beliefs that I'm carrying. Whereas if I ask you, as I do when I go around the world, what do you really value? Most people, yeah, they say FFH, FFH. In other words, I really value, I really care about family, friends, and health. But then I ask, well, why do you care about family, friends, and health? What's the deeper aspect to this? And it's because when you have nice family and good friends, that's when you exchange and you feel the energy of love. When your health is good, that's when you're at peace within yourself, your well being, you're at peace. And have you ever noticed only when love and peace are present in your consciousness can you be truly happy? Yeah. And so love, peace, and happiness are what we really value. And where are they? Where do we find them? They're not outside. They're not in the department store. They're not in the gift. They're not in the wrapping. They're not in the card. The love and the peace and the happiness, they're already within each one of us. They are states of being, natural states of being. We kind of know this intuitively. So when someone doesn't do what you want, there is the tendency to get upset and angry and then to condemn and to blame them. Whereas when you are operating from your values, in other words, what you really care about, in other words, your natural state of being, when you're coming, you're creating from that natural state of being, then you have a greater compassion and more care for the person who doesn't do what you want. In other words, you're more likely to ask, was there a problem? Was there something in the way? Oh, okay, let's do it differently next time. In other words, you seek understanding. But that only comes because you care. And so this is the creative process and the two ways that you can allow that process to manifest creatively into your life. So I can prove it to you almost. What's the first thought you wake up with in the mornings? What's the first thought? Generally speaking, most people wake up with this thought, oh God, not another day. God, I have to go to work. Oh, it's terrible. I have to drag myself into work. Or is it, yes, another day, fun, relationships, fantastic, work, opportunity, great. Very seldom do people wake up with that particular thought. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you do. There's at least one day a year you are out of bed like a shot, and it's definitely a yes day. I give you a clue, a little clue as to which one day every year you are out of that bed with so much enthusiasm, so much motivation. It's the day you go on vacation because on that day you have a clear sense of purpose. You know the focus of your energy, the focus, the attention you're going to give your consciousness to. You know exactly what it is. You know the direction of your life for the next 2 weeks. You know what you're going to do is meaningful for you. You're going to do absolutely nothing except lying on a beach. And that seems to be the most meaningful thing that you can do. In fact, you even justify it saying, it's a healthy, it's good for my well-being. And so you made a major commitment to who? To yourself to go and have a lot of fun. And so you are highly motivated. So all these things fall into place. They're all connected. Why? Because you're going to be the master of your life for the next 2 weeks to do exactly what you want and believe is the right thing to do. So purpose is what we are here to do. Yeah. To be creative, to create our story, to create our life. But what are you going to create? A great service or just a great story or both? It's entirely up to you. I cannot tell you what that is. You have a blank canvas in front of you, the canvas of your life ahead. And so it's up to you how you use the energy to create your story. Um, Once you're clear about that purpose, and how they might come together, you might get a picture of what that looks like. And that's why this term vision is very popular. Vision is how you see yourself doing your purpose brilliantly. In other words, fulfilling your purpose. Whether it's a great service or whether it's some other aspect of life that you're making a contribution to. Yeah, and you're doing it brilliantly, and you can see yourself doing it brilliantly, and that's called vision. It's a picture of your preferred future state, and it's created by, guess who? By you. Guess where? On the screen of your mind. And then the third factor, again, a term you may be familiar with, and the way I'm using it here, this idea of mission, is what you need to do each and every day to bring your purpose and vision to life. Do you need to do more learning? Do you need to buy some books? Do you need to sit and meditate? Do you need to find a bunch of people who are really exploring this topic more? In other words, what do you need to do every day to bring your vision and your purpose to life? Don't try and work that out first, but see if you can get clear on your purpose first. So that's all going to depend on where you are now and where you see yourselves in the future. Sometimes all of this information is rolled into one. Sometimes in organization tends to be more than it does in individuals, but it tends to be rolled into something, sometimes called a mission statement, sometimes called a vision statement. It doesn't really matter what you call it, but all this information is collected, and there it is. Here is why I'm here and what I'm going to create and do with this thing called my life, my journey. So, how to focus your purpose, how to shift your attention from head to heart and use your energy to be more consciously creative. Yeah. In other words, how to get out of any habits of laziness that you've created already and laid down in the matrix of your personality. And we all have habits of lazy, of avoidance. Anytime I sit in front of a screen, it means I'm kind of avoiding. Well, practice number one is the oldest in the universe. It's called meditation, and it's really about the cultivation of self-awareness. In other words, when you meditate, you're making yourself more aware, not so much of yourself, but what you're creating within yourself, what's arising within yourself, what's coming from your previous creation, from the past, in other words, from your subconscious into your conscious mind. And then you may see what you need to change. Contemplation is the studying of your experience and your insperience, or the wisdom of others. It doesn't really matter, but you're studying, you're exploring, you're reflecting on, you're contemplating what just happened in the meeting. What did I say? Why did I say that? How do I change it? How do I improve it? And so this is a moment of contemplation. Application is putting your realizations that you have from these first two practices into action. In other words, applying. In other words, I'm going to stay peaceful tomorrow in the meeting because I realized I got angry at David. It wasn't David who made me angry. So I'm going to remain very calm and very peaceful tomorrow. It doesn't matter what he says, I'm going to maintain that calmness because I realized it's me, not him, that's upsetting me. What contribution can you make to the service of others? The reason this is important is because most of our habits have been learned and built around take, keep, possess, acquire, get it before the next guy. And so we tend to be out to get what we can. So making a contribution in some area of your life tends to reverse that energy. It tends to heal that energy. Yeah, in other words, from taking to giving. In other words, to taste the satisfaction that comes from giving yourself wholeheartedly to some creative process. And then hang out with people who like to talk about, explore, understand, deepen their awareness of these particular subjects. In other words, don't hang out with toxic people if you can, if it's possible. So, in essence, the three primary motivators on everyone's journey, and they arise from inside out, they come from inside out. You're not motivated from outside. It's what moves you from inside out. It's about discovering that. It's intrinsic. It's purpose, creativity, and meaning. And they all come together. They should all come together. Ideally, they all come together. So when you're creating something meaningful to you, yeah, then you will be naturally creative and your sense of purpose will be in the background. You won't even think, what is my purpose? What's my purpose here in life? When you're being and doing in the creative process, the last thing you're thinking is, what is my purpose? Yeah. And even more so if you're being creative in the context of what's meaningful to you. What's meaningful to you. So find your area of most meaningfulness. How can you make a contribution towards it? And then use your creativity to make that contribution. And then you will be living your life on purpose, as they say. So thanks for zooming in. I'm sure that raises just as many questions as it does answers. So let's see if there's any questions that I need to respond to. Are you going to break in with any questions,
Yes,
Jyotika? Yeah.
yes. I have got few questions from the participants
Okay.
before that, and thank you, Mike. Actually, you simplified the whole idea about purpose, and you said purpose of life could be as simple as to live. And in a very simple way, you made us understand that the ball is actually in our court, and it is I who perceive and think, and accordingly, my destiny is created. So maybe we have got this concept to explore from now on. The questions have come up. The first question is in the role of leadership, dealing with the junior staff, and how does one deal with that situation wherein you don't want to come across as rude, but at the same time need the work to be completed as per schedule? And I think many of us face this issue, wherein it is not a control belief, I suppose, but because I'm responsible to get that work completed with everyone's cooperation.
Yeah, it's about allowing, not bringing, but allowing the best to emerge from the other person. So, in other words, it's a combination of never losing respect for that other person, never losing regard for that other person, no matter what rank they are. They're first and foremost a human being. And the foundation of human relationship is respect and regard. And then when they do something well, then is to recognize that, but not to stop recognizing them when they don't do something very well, but to work out how you can help them. So always be available to help them, to support them, to encourage them. Yeah. But of course, to do either of those things, I have to first of all take responsibility for my own creation. And if I'm creating fear and anger towards them, then that's going to put up a barrier. It's not going to help them. It's not going to help me. In other words, fear and anger means that I am fearing losing something and I'm angry at them because I think they're responsible for me losing something in the future. That's what all fear is, fear of loss. And of course, they're not responsible for me losing. I'm responsible. Yeah. I'm the creator of the fear. I'm the creator of the relationship. I'm the creator, even of whether they do it well or not. If I take responsibility and they notice I'm taking responsibility, then they will take more responsibility for what they do. But if I'm blaming them all the time, even subtly, even with my thoughts, they'll put up a barrier and they'll be less motivated, they'll be less encouraged to do what they're doing.
Okay, so you mean to say that I need to make the purpose of my life as service, even when there is no acknowledgement or reciprocation, let alone cooperation from people around me?
Oh yeah, in a sense, your satisfaction, if it's connected to getting feedback from others, to be recognized by others for what you do, then that satisfaction is going to be that shallow. Whereas if your satisfaction is coming from inside out instead of outside in, instead of from others, if it's coming from within you, within your consciousness, then it's going to be much deeper and more real. And so that's the challenge. How do I emerge my sense of fulfillment, my sense of satisfaction in a much greater way than the neediness I have of being recognized by others? And that's what we're encouraged to do. We're encouraged to be needy of others' recognition, especially in organizations. And so the clever leader, the enlightened leader, they realize it must come from within. And it only comes from within when you give of yourself, creatively or otherwise, towards what everyone else is doing, when you make a contribution to what everyone else is doing, and you are no longer needy of their recognition.
Okay, thank you. And another question is how we unlearn habits permanently. Sometimes it tends to come back.
Yes. Every habit has at the core something called a belief. Yeah. And so the belief is something you're holding on to, mostly in your subconscious. And so the only real way to be aware of that belief and what that belief might be is through the process of meditation. Now, consciousness is like an iceberg. 10% of the iceberg you see, in other words, 10% you're aware of. 90% is below the surface. In other words, 90% of your consciousness is in the subconscious. It's what you're not aware of on the day-to-day, moment-to-moment basis. And it's in your subconscious that the roots of your habits, yeah, have exist. And the root of the habit is a belief or belief system that you've picked up along the way. So through the meditation, you lower the line, or you allow yourself to become aware of the belief you're holding on to in your subconscious, yeah, that is giving rise to the habit that you are consciously acting out in your life. And so that belief is not true. Yeah? In other words, if you're coming from a place of truth, your true self, your true nature, then you will not allow your life to be defined by habits. You will meet the moment creatively, newly, differently every time. You will not act just out of habit, out of comfort, your comfort zone, because you are being your true, authentic self. And that's the challenge for us all, is to rediscover what is true and authentic within ourselves, as opposed to the beliefs and belief systems that we've learned and that we're holding on to in our subconscious. And you hear those beliefs in people's conversations. You know, when they say, "Oh, I believe this, I think this, oh, they should be doing this, they should be doing that." And so you hear it in the arguments, in their position that they take. You hear their habitual beliefs and belief systems. And so all beliefs, doesn't matter what it is, any belief you express is not the truth.
Thank you. And another question which has come up is How to be creative and maintain it? Maybe partly it has been addressed, but still the question has come up. How to be creative and maintain it?
You at every single moment you are being creative. You are not. There's no moments in your life when you're not creative, because you're always creating something. Thoughts, attitudes, feelings, emotions, doesn't really matter. It's the nature of life. It's your very nature to be creative and to express your creation. But the question is, what's the quality of that creation? Is it coming from, is it arising from a belief or belief system that is totally inaccurate? Not right or wrong, but just inaccurate. I'm trying to avoid right or wrong, because then you start going, oh, I'm so wrong, I'm so bad, I'm so awful as a person. Then you start putting yourself down and you start creating a belief that I'm inferior. No, 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 no. Look, the belief is inaccurate. In other words, you are not creating from the truth, the true nature of you as the being of consciousness. That's what we've learned. And so you're unlearning that by sitting quietly in meditation and bringing into your awareness the true nature, the underlying true nature of you as a conscious being, which you cannot lose. You can't lose it, but it gets covered over, it gets layered over by all these beliefs that you have learned. And it's much easier to use those beliefs as your references. It's much easier. It's laziness, really, than to let go and say, well, is that belief true? Am I acting in the most accurate way? Am I creating? Am I thinking? Am I feeling in the most accurate way? Oh, I feel terrible. Oh, wait a minute. Feeling terrible is not accurate. It's not my true nature to be feeling terrible, angry, and upset all the time. Okay, let me look at that. Let me explore that. This is curiosity. I'm curious. Where is this coming from? Oh, this is coming from a belief that I'm holding on to in my subconscious. Now, where did that belief? I don't really know. Well, maybe I got that from my dad or my mom or my teachers or media or whatever. But anyway, it's not accurate, because that belief is leading to a feeling of anger. Yeah. And so very simple. Let me finish with a very simple example. I believe the car that sits outside is my car. So when someone damages the car, it's as if they damage me. I get upset. Yeah. No, they don't make me upset. I make me upset. I make me angry. I make me suffer, which means something is not accurate in my creation, in my consciousness. So if I really go into that, I'll notice it's because I'm attached to the car in my mind. I believe the car is mine, but it's not mine. It's not my car. It's a car, and I get to use it for a while, but it's not my car. Nah, that's the truth. The car comes and goes. There's the truth. The truth is, I don't own the car. I don't possess the car. The car comes and, oh, cars come and go. They get rusty. That's great. They get damaged. That's life. That's the truth. As opposed to my car. Oh, you don't damage my car. That's my car. See, that's not the truth. That's a belief that it's my car. That's what I've been taught. You own, you possess the car. No, no, I don't. I don't own, I don't possess anything. That's not easy. That's hard for most people to realize. You do not possess anything.
So at the end of the day, I need to spend to get it repaired.
Yeah, but then that's all about money. And so then money comes and goes. You cannot possess money. You can't possess things, material things. This is a material paradigm. This is what we've learned to believe, that we live in a material paradigm and that I'm a material entity. I look in the mirror and I believe I am what I see in the mirror. That's a belief. It's not the truth. Yeah, I'm not saying it's right or wrong or good or bad. You can believe it as long as you like. But if you notice, it's that belief that is the underlying cause of your suffering. Oh my God, there's wrinkles and gray hair. I'm getting older. I'm going to die. And so the fear of losing arises. Do you see it? And so fear is suffering. Who's creating the suffering? I'm creating the suffering. That's unnatural. If it was natural, then we'd be looking for seminars that would be entitled, "Come and we'll tell you how to suffer. Come and we'll make you the angriest person in the world. Come and we'll show you how to be really so sad you'll be depressed for the rest of your life." We don't look for those seminars. We would say they're unnatural. We look for seminars which are, how do I be happy on? What is it what is the true meaning of love? We're looking for really what we are. We're always searching for what is most natural that is within ourselves already.
Thank you. Uh, there are actually some questions which have come up. Maybe it will take few more minutes, but
Okay.
I think worth taking up.
Yeah.
And they are in relationship with, first of all, others, with the Supreme, and with nature.
Okay.
So, three separate questions. So, first, I take up this question. When we are in a relationship, we think it is so important and it is not possible to separate us. And when things go wrong, one person is distant very easily, other one is sad and difficult to accept. So, what does it mean, and how can we not feel sad and down when we have such situations?
If you feel sad, down, angry, upset with the other person, it means you are dependent on them. In other words, you're dependent on them to make you happy. One of my favorite cartoons is the man and the wife looking at each other in a little bubble above their heads. And they're both saying the same thing. It's like a speech bubble, and both saying the same thing to each other, but you're in my life to make me happy. you know? And so happiness doesn't come from the other person. Yeah, love does not come from the other person. I mean, they will be happy and they will be loving, but I'm not dependent on their happiness or their lovefulness for how I feel in myself. If I become dependent, then I'm bound to be disappointed. I'm bound to feel let down. I'm bound to feel upset sometime in the future. And so this is called dependency. It really means I'm attached to the other person. I'm needy of the other person. It really means that I've lost my sense of who I am in the idea, not the person, but in the idea of the other person in my consciousness, which really means in my life. In other words, when they go away, oh my God, I'm so sad. Don't leave me, don't go away. Yeah. And so if it's real love and they go away, if I really am coming from a place of love, and love is what I am, it's not what I acquire, it's what I am. If I'm vibrating from that energy of love, then I'm going to say, hey, good luck. Fine. I'll see you Monday. Okay, great. Yeah, if you need anything, let me know. I'm here to help. I'm always available. Yeah. In other words, I'm not needy of the person. And so that's a healthy, in essence, a healthy relationship is to be non-needy, non-attached. Don't get love and attachment mixed up. It's the biggest mistake in the world. Hollywood and Bollywood have taught us really well, yeah, to get love and attachment mixed up.
Thank you. Uh, Maybe we need to unlearn some things and learn some things for answering this, being this actually. There are two questions in relationship with the Supreme, and how to know if the purpose I define or feel is in line with the purpose or mission the Supreme Power has for me, for my life. And another thing which is related to this is we know that we have to be creative to lead and create our lives. We also know that God puts a plan for everything. We might bring the positive energy into our lives, but are we responsible if the consequences or the story changes to the unexpected?
There's about 5 questions in there. Yes.
Yes.
Um, the simplest way to look at it is, I use the hammer and the nail as an example at the very beginning. Is that the hammer has a purpose. The purpose of the hammer is to hammer in nails, and so the hammer is the instrument that is used to hammer in nail. Yeah? And so, um, what you might call the spiritual journey or the awakening, the journey of awakening, is the journey back to being an instrument of the source. I don't like using the word God because there's so much baggage with the word God, religion and supreme and so on. Just the source is fine. Source of spiritual energy. You know? And so there is a source and what you might call a higher source. And so it's like I'm making a journey back, you know, to being an instrument of that source, being an instrument here. And so what is that source? How would that source use me? Yeah, well, as long as I'm an individual and they're an individual, they would use me to create my life, my story here in this world, in this material world. They would use me to create the highest, the best, the most beautiful story. So the highest, the best, the most beautiful, the most truthful story, the story that expressed or brought truth to the world. Yeah. And so that's how they would use me. That's how I kind of see it. And so that's what I'm doing. I need to make some effort to get back to that. And they're waiting for me to make the effort to get back to being beautiful, to being truthful, to being totally loving. You know, because love is what I am. It's just a word that I'm using to describe my highest state of being. So I'm making my way back to being aware of that. And then they can use me in this world to help others to do the same. Yeah, to be present for others. Not that I'm thinking, oh, I'm the great helper of others. Yeah. My purpose is to help others. That's the ego talking. That's why it's often said that only the ego has a purpose. When you're living on purpose, you're not thinking, oh, this is my purpose. This is what I'm here to do. You're just doing it. You're just creating. You're just being creative. You know? And so I would not be thinking, oh, I'm the instrument. I'm a great instrument. I'm really instrumentally helping others to be back. No, you're not thinking that. You just are that. Yeah.
Thank you. I think the cream has come up now. When you have the purpose, you just leave that. You don't tell that. You don't
No,
reiterate that
no,
again and again. I think this is what we take back today. I think this is the important point. Someone needs an opinion from you, and the phrase is, the humans are serving to nature with a mission and vision, but nature, like plants, animals, also serving. But do they have vision or mission? In other words, don't you think they are doing selfless service? Your opinion, please.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, they don't have a developed intellect. They can't reflect. You know, they can't build cities or complicated schematics or blueprints or whatever. They're just doing what's natural, what comes naturally to them. They're just growing and being themselves. The tree doesn't try to become a bush. The flower doesn't try and become a tree. They're just doing what's natural to themselves. They don't think about it. They don't question it. We get to think, we get to question, we get to create complex ideas and philosophies and so on. But then we also get to be our natural selves. And when you're being your natural, being your nature, your true nature, then you don't want to complicate things. You don't want to build great big highest towers in the world. You don't want to build great big cities. You don't want to design complicated philosophies. You simply want to be a part, play your part, create your part in life itself, in the world itself. Yeah? And so what we do is we think too much and we ask too many questions. That's why we're watching the world now go into a process of what's called entropy. In other words, we're misusing the energy and we're losing the quality of how we're using that energy. We're losing the quality in our creation. Yeah, and so the energy is becoming more chaotic, more disparate. And so therefore, we are becoming more chaotic and more disparate. And so there we're moving away from our natural state of being. That's what's happening in generally in the world. And that's why you've got this polarization where more people are falling away into that chaos. And there's a small group of people in the world who are beginning to realize that and are waking up, simplify their life, simplify their natural state, and live more naturally, be more natural, not want anything from anyone, be here to give to everyone, etc., etc., because that's much more natural. And so they're concentrating their energy. And so you've got this polarization of these two energies in the world. So very soon, if not, it hasn't already, you're going to get the choice of which direction you want to go in. Yeah, that's becoming more apparent, more and more by the day, for obvious reasons.
Thank you. There are a few more questions coming up, but I think we should stop here. But I would like to sum up the whole session. Um, are you shaping the world, or is the world shaping you? So we were asking questions to Mike, but actually Mike has a question for all of us. And I think this will really clarify today's session and purpose. And everything has a purpose, everything comes for use. We need to operate at two levels, being and doing, wherein being is the first. Let go of the past story to create a new story. The satisfaction comes not in the achievement, but during the complete process. The purpose of life is creativity that is meaningful. It is best to make service as the purpose of life than survival as the purpose of life. Otherwise, we may think others as threat. Wonderful and amazing sharing, my George.
Good summary.
Really full of gratitude. Our heart is today. And let us wave a hand of appreciation and gratitude to Mike. But before we stop, can I request you to lead us to some silent reflection, some of your thoughts speaking out loud?
Yes, let's let's finish with a meditation. When I do meditation, I try to keep it as simple as possible and not sort of do another
Yes.
kind of lecture. So just it's just a very quiet process, and you can do this anywhere, anytime. Very simple process, and it starts with just relaxing your body in the chair, taking the shape of your chair, and just looking for any tightness or tension, and letting it go. And then don't look at the screen. Just rest your eyes somewhere beyond the screen, because if you look at the screen, it's easy to trigger habits of judging and what's that and what's this and naming and labeling. And you want to rest your mind. You want to rest yourself from those habits for a few moments. So just find somewhere in front of you to rest your eyes. And you don't need to stare. You can blink or you can close your eyes if you want. And then just be attentive, be aware of your breathing and follow your breath for a moment. And it just brings all your attention away from everything around you, and it brings your attention back to your breath. And then just follow the cycle of your breathing. Don't force, just watch. Just watch your breath rising and falling. And then you feel even more relaxed and yet very aware. And bring your attention to yourself. Just see if you can be aware of yourself being aware. And in your mind, just create one thought, one simple thought. I am a being of peace. I am a being of peace. Let that thought pass across the screen of your mind very slowly. And then let it fade into the background and notice what remains. There's a feeling of calm and quiet, a feeling of peace. And notice this feels also natural in this moment now. The mind is quiet and there's a stillness here at the heart of my being. Silent and still. And then bring your awareness back out to the room around you, and the here and now. But bring that stillness with you. So as you look through these eyes, see from that stillness. As you listen through these ears, hear from that stillness.
Thank you so much. It doesn't feel like coming back to sound after this inner reflection. Many thanks for being with us today evening, afternoon for you. And hope we'll be able to interact with you again and again in the future. Many thanks.
Thanks, Jyotika.
Just